What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Monday night, October 31st. October 30th, 2023. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm ready for Halloween tomorrow. Goodness. It is about 7:01 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity looks like a 1.6 into the Alaska region. Did see, looks like a 3.9 and a 4.9 here into the Aleutian Trench just a couple hours ago. I want to jump into first this beautiful volcano sitting up there into the Washington area here in the United States. Mount St. Helens, absolutely beautiful volcano. Looks like it has received a little bit of snowfall here recently. This latest image put out 01/30/38. So current UTC time is about 0200. So it's about half an hour old. But it is a temporary webcam that has been put up here by a seismologist there at the agency that monitors the earthquake activity and also volcanic activity there across Mount St. Helens. So we're lucky to have this, at least this current view of the beautiful Mount St. Helens area. Now, this volcano has had a earthquake swarm, a pretty good earthquake swarm here since about July. I pulled up the last couple months here of seismic data, and by the way, the USGS did put out an information statement on all this earthquake activity. I'll cover that here in just a second. But we're looking at about 360 earthquakes of very small magnitudes. If you pull up the largest magnitude out of all of these, it looks like a 2.4 and a 2.2 is it. Those are really, really small earthquakes, but the significance of this is the multitude of earthquakes that are occurring specifically underneath this area. It's not over here to the north, to the south, or east, or west. It's directly underneath the summit area of the Mount St. Helens volcano here in Washington. So we do have some significant earthquake activity kicking up here. And USGS did put out an information statement here. Let me show you guys here real quick, see what they stated. This was put out today, by the way, by the USGS.gov website. This is their summary here. Over the past 3 months, seismicity at Mount St. Helens has been elevated, but remains consistent with background seismicity. Most of these earthquakes have been less than magnitude 1.0 and too small to be felt at the surface. No significant changes have been observed in other monitoring parameters, such as gas emissions, GPS, inflation data. And I've covered this quite a bit here. I take a look at those details in studying this volcano in my updates. Currently, there is no change in the volcano alert level or aviation color code. But here's their observation here, current observation. Over 400 earthquakes have been located by the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network since July 15th. In late August to early September, about 40 to 50 earthquakes were located per week. And more recently, the number has been about 30 located earthquakes per week there at that volcano. So to compare, since 2008, on average, about 11 earthquakes have been located per month at Mount St. Helens. So the last somewhat, uptick in eruption status was back in 2008. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but they thought it was going to pop. There was a little bit of earthquake activity, and I think maybe an ash cloud that kicked out. But since then, there's only been about 11 earthquakes per month. So this is actually a pretty significant uptick, I would say here. 400 earthquakes in the last couple months here. That's quite the above background level, I think, anyway. The largest magnitude in this recent period of uptick was at 2.4 that I mentioned. It occurred on August 27th of this year. Here is the prognosis here, what they think is going on here. Now, this is very interesting. Short-term increases in earthquake rates are common at Mount St. Helens and are considered part of the background seismicity. The current seismicity represents the largest short-term increase in earthquake rates since the last eruption ended back in 2008. However, longer duration sequences with more events occurred in 1998 to these dates right here. None of the sequences in the 1980s and 90s directly led to eruptions. Small magnitude earthquakes located beneath Mount St. Helens at depths well below sea level are generally thought to be associated with pressurization of the magma transport system. One cause of this pressurization is the arrival of additional magma, a process called recharge. We know that about many different volcanoes recharging, right? Kilauea Volcano, one of them here recently. Mount St. Helens is fed by magma that forms near the base of the crust at depths of about 25 kilometers at 16 miles below the surface. Magma slowly rises through the lower crust and accumulates in the reservoir about 4 to 10 kilometers. That's 2.5 to 6 miles below sea level. Recharge events can occur when magma enters this upper reservoir and increases stress that lead to earthquakes, right? We see this activity occurring directly where we would expect to see magma accumulation below this region. Let me get back here to the data. High rates of seismicity as recharge interpreted. I'm off here today. As recharge have been observed in the past at Mount St. Helens and at other volcanoes, and can continue for many years without an eruption. But I think the main thing we need to get out of this is that even these folks here, believe that maybe there's a recharge going on below the surface there, where magma accumulates, right? It's very interesting. We haven't seen any uptick in terms of GPS coordinates going up far as inflation data, but the earthquake activity has definitely been there. Now, we did see back in early September some gas emissions on the charts there elevated. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick from the Volcano Hazards website there on Mount St. Helens. And by the way, I don't know, Timothy has a lot of information out here in terms of the Mount St. Helens activity located on one distinct page. This site is called nzquakes.com, basically meaning New Zealand Quakes.com, other drums, Mount St. Helens, and there's a lot of seismograph stations here, GPS coordinates, and also gas emission monitoring stations out here, along with CO2 low pass filters, as far as the monitoring of CO2, SO2 stations here as well. Now, back in early September, I believe it was the SO2 or sulfur. Let me see if I can find it on this station here to be exact. I believe it was a sulfur dioxide station right here. This is directly from the USGS site. But again, Timothy has an excellent site here. Timothy, one of our mods here on the channel, has an excellent site with a lot of information here in terms of GPS coordinates and whatnot, and drums all across the area. Now, this is a station that did have the uptick, a little spike here. It was actually well above the normal average reading here back in early September. And that's when I think somewhat of the earthquake swarm peaked, when we started to see a dramatic uptick in earthquake activity. So that kicked up a little bit of SO2, sulfur dioxide, not SO2, sulfur dioxide emissions here I'm not for sure what, yeah, SO2. Getting all my numbers mixed up here. Believe it or not, I've been studying a lot here on these charts, and there's many different volcanic gases that can play a part out here. So SO2, sulfur dioxide, this peaked back in September. Right now, though, if you look through the past 30 days, this is a 30-day map. Well, it's been pretty average. A little uptick, a little down, a little up. Nothing of any significance that I can see in the terms of volcanic gases. Just continuing to see earthquake activity there. And it's very interesting to watch this, to think that there is some pressurization going on due to additional magma, potentially additional magma occurring below Mount St. Helens, recharging the system. So this will be interesting to watch here over the next few months. Well, maybe next couple weeks, next couple months, maybe next couple years, before we may see, some signs of eruption status. I think what we have to play a part in, or watch closely, is inflation data. I'm just going to go up here on this map and show you guys Mount St. Helens right here at the cone area, lava dome. This is the most current recent image here of the inflation data directly at the cone area. There's other stations that monitor the activity around the volcano, but this is specifically at the cone region, where I think I would expect to see some upswelling or uplift there. 2023 is going to be right here. As you can see, we're almost to 2024, which would be right about here. General trend here continues to show that deflation with periodic seasonal uplift here. So we'll continue to watch that, though. But this earthquake activity adding on to this, possible seasonal uplift will be interesting to watch. That's for sure. Today's activity, 4 earthquakes, slightly less than what we've seen here over the past couple days, but still some earthquake activity. Got to continue to watch that. And the depth of these earthquakes, consistent down there below the surface, where we expect magma could be accumulating down there between 3 and 5 miles or so. These are kilometers right here. All right, so yeah, I mean it's a volcano, right? And eventually this thing will probably pop again. No doubt, just like Mount St. Helens and Mount Lassen and Mount Rainier, Mount Hood. They're not just there for scenery. I mean, they are, really, if you think about it. There's beautiful scenery up there. But they have a purpose, geological purpose there. They're volcanoes. They kind of relieve that pressure below. And right now, I think there's some good pressure building up here across the area of the Cascades. And more specifically, around the Mount St. Helens volcano. We'll continue to watch that. But that is a live view, or at least a live shot there from about half an hour, 45 minutes or so ago. Better than the ones that we looked at before on their website. Literally, they have like an image here from, I don't know, last year maybe? Or no, it was back in 2011 if I remember right. So I'm thankful to have that most recent image there, Mount St. Helens. We'll continue to watch that and see how much recharging the system gets there. All right, a little bit of activity stirring up here into the, west-southwest of St. George area. Now, there are a couple different islands out here. 4.3 and 3.9 for this little activity away from the plate boundary. Aside from that, most of the plate boundary here, the subduction zone remains pretty quiet. Areas across the west coast, aside from the movement up in the Cascades there at that volcano. Spotty activity at best across California today. Haven't really seen any major uptick or any unusual activity. Got a little swarm going on down here. Kicked off, it looks like, late last night across this area of the Bullion Mountain Range off of the Lavic. Looks like Lavic Lake Fault. A couple different fault systems here on the North American side of the plate boundary. These, of course, are additional secondary stress following that plate boundary here. A lot of times the momentum and the stress accumulates on these other fault systems, indicating quite the strain here across the plate boundary, which we already know exists. Nothing big, but quite a few 2s out there and some 1s. Continuing to watch this area of Southern Cal. Also some activity stirring up here on the San Jacinto fault zone from earlier this morning, a 3.4 near La Quinta. That is, again, just on one of the segments of the San Jacinto fault zone, the ANZA section to be exact. Nothing spectacular going on across the San Andreas fault for now, though. But we know it's wound up about as tight as can be. Don't know how much longer it's going to be. Yellowstone supervolcano shows nothing going on. Let's go ahead and double check this here. With the latest seismograph stations, looks fairly quiet. Well, hold on a second here. Looks like a little earthquake activity within the last couple hours or so. Generally some small microquake activity here around the looks like maybe the Little West Thumb area, or actually it looks like it showed up here as well. Can't get a definite epicenter area, but it looks like mainly around the western areas of Yellowstone National Park. A little seismic activity here. You can see that in the last 20 minutes or so. Nothing really showing up here on the USGS map. It is after hours, as far as office hours go for the USGS, so they will only report 2.5 and above. That's what their computers are set at as far as the preliminary earthquake data reporting system. Anything smaller than that gets reviewed the following business day. So obviously it's not above 2.5. Otherwise, that computer system would have spit it out, and we'd see the preliminary data. All right, rest of the state's pretty quiet. Puerto Rico area Handful of earthquakes. Haven't really seen any further uptick here off the Jamaica zone. They did see that 5.4 ringing the bells out here across the area, 9 o'clock this morning, local time, my time anyway. Outside the Kingston area, it was felt pretty broadly in the region. Haven't really seen any further activity, though, across this area. South America, a handful of earthquakes up and down the Peru Chile Trench. And it looks like the South Sandwich Trench here is showing a little bit of activity with a few fives. The latest there, 10 kilometers deep for that 5.0 on the southern end here of this subduction zone. Look at the earthquake 3D globe. Some movement there in South America that's not showing up on the USGS map. These are mainly 2s and 3s across the area. There's that earthquake activity there in the South Sandwich Trench. One earthquake, looks like off the coast of Greenland, well north of Iceland here. 4.5 earthquake showing up. Let's see, USGS reporting that? Yeah, let's see here. Looks like they are. 4.5 here in this area, the Jan Mayen region. On the, this is a divergent boundary zone up here, I believe, in the area. 10 kilometers deep for a 4.5. The rest of the Atlantic looks pretty quiet aside from areas down south. There's a handful of earthquakes there across Iceland in the smaller range as far as the magnitudes go. Middle East and Mediterranean regions, some older movement quakes here, including a 4.2 near Turkey. Quite the uptick going on here across areas of China and around the Himalayas. Let's see what we got going on here. Quite a few 4s stirring up out here, relatively shallow earthquakes. Now these are away from the plate boundary, but the general stress up here up against the Himalayas, this major subduction zone area. Let's go over here and show you guys where we're at. This shows this region right here, India and the Eurasia plate. This is that subduction zone there indicating the Himalayas. Definitely looks like there's some buildup out there in terms of stress against the plate boundary. You might want to watch this area across the Himalaya mountain range, northern India, for some further movement with this activity stirring up away from the plate boundary. Further east, there's that line of activity stretching up and down the western Pacific. They look evenly spaced out here. A lot of this activity, though, from earlier this morning. 5.1 earthquake down here outside of Guam. 10 kilometers deep is the latest earthquake activity, but definitely did see some movement. Filling in here, this area of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, I believe, is capable of producing, well, it's obviously capable of producing some mega quakes, but it's been a while since we've seen anything major out here. I definitely think this area of the plate boundary is stressed and overdue. Continue to watch that, but for now, just minimal activity. Down here across the area of New Zealand and the Kermadec Islands, the 3.8 from last night, about ready to drop off the earthquake 3D globe here in about 20 minutes or so. 4.5 and a 4.5 here up along the Kermadec Trench. Let me see what we got here for the GeoNet servers. Looks like a little spotty activity here across the North Island region. Some 3 showing up. So let's double check and see what we have going on there for earthquake activity. See if anything's being reported here. I meant to click this one right here. Well, 3.0 from yesterday. I guess we got to do the all magnitudes. 2.5 or 2.4, 58 minutes ago. 2.1. A couple other ones. There's a deleted 3.1. Doesn't look like anything major going on here across the area. There's not a whole lot of felt reports going on, so that means there's not a whole lot of shaking going on here, at least stuff that's felt. Looking at the live seismic, well, the recorded drums out here, shows some older movement there from yesterday. There's going to be some of these quakes dropping off that 24-hour threshold, but for the most part, generally smaller quakes out here across the New Zealand area for now. The Big Island of Hawaii, this is another volcano out here that we're continuing to watch. This area is showing obvious inflation. Unlike the Mount St. Helens area, the magma is very close to the surface in this area. Let's go ahead and check out the latest information here from the Hazard Notification System, which is the, oh goodness, these look awfully small. Not for sure what happened here. Kilauea Daily Update. Let me bring this up here a little bit. Shows that the volcano is currently not erupting. This was put out earlier this morning. Still continuing to see earthquake activity. And most of these magnitudes have been smaller than 2.0. And they've been occurring about 1 to 3 kilometers, which is 0.6 to 2 miles below the surface. SO2 emissions rates remain low and were measured at a rate of 100 tons per day on October 19th. So, let's go ahead and go over here and check out the inflation data. I'll show you guys what I mean here in terms of the magma accumulating pretty rapidly out here across this area of Kilauea Volcano. This tilt meter here shows the last 2 days of activity. This is inflation data. A little bit of decline there from last night, but we're continuing to rise back up here with inflation. This is the last 30 days of inflation data, showing the trend of inflation fairly dominant. Every 5 days or so, it seems like we have a little deflation event for a day and a half, maybe 2 days, followed up by a few more days of inflation. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Although we haven't peaked out as what we've seen here in our last inflation data on the graph there that peaked out around the October 23rd time frame. But we're still kind of accumulating here the magma below the surface with this inflation. Not really seeing anything major going on. Again, far as gas emissions, that station's not working. This one is September 2023. Of course, it's going to be during eruption events that we see this elevated. But for the most part, let's see, past month, past year. Here's some of our eruption dates here that kicked off there in earlier September. Right now, we're still pretty mellow there in terms of the sulfur dioxide emissions there, but accumulation of magma below, obviously. And it's still mainly confined here to this area south of the summit region. Now, the summit region, of course, continuing to show volcanic gases out here, the cracks out here, indicating that there's still, I still think there's some heated areas down below the surface area of the lava lake. That's why we have all these gases going up. But as far as visible lava, well, it's not there. And I don't know if it's going to show up here or if it's going to show up to the area south of the lava lake area where all the earthquake activity has been accumulated. A thing to watch would be the depth below the surface of these earthquakes that are taking place. Obviously, magma is rising up to this area. That's where we're seeing that swelling going on. But the magnitudes here are very small, and the depth below the surface for these earthquakes they're down there a little bit, 1 to 3, 4 kilometers or so. And that's where most of this earthquake activity has been occurring. So we'll continue to watch that, see if it's going to move more northward towards the lava lake area, where lava, crater lake area, not, you guys know what I mean, out here in this area where we've seen the last couple eruptions confined to this area of the lava lake. So many words to remember, right? Volcano house, volcano, a lot of stuff going on out here with the volcano. So we'll continue to watch that and see where it wants to erupt next. I think we're going to see more fissures opening up here south, but that's just my own observation, and I don't know if it's a forecast or just maybe my thoughts. All right, we are seeing sunspot number 3474 ramping up here. Look at the latest image showing that complexity activity here. Let me bring up something here. I'd seen something cool earlier. I got to go to Space Weather Live, this site right here. Now, it looks like they've... Let me see. Do they have it on here? Maybe it was a different website. Maybe I have to be on their app. But they had a really cool thing here where you could click on the map and see a couple different magnetogram images over the sunspots. It's kind of a cool overlay, but I don't know, I'm not seeing it on there. I'll have to go back and check. But let's go back and look at the magnetogram image here of the complex region with the sunspot. Unfortunately, there is still a separation in between this main core. You want these really close in proximity to get some major flaring going on. And I'm noticing a wide separation in between this area. And there's still a little area down here, this blue and yellow and orange area of this sunspot core that may spark up some flares. But if this continues to separate itself, we're not really going to see a whole lot of flaring from these areas. This regional sunspot up here looks like it's trying to grow. Maybe this one as well. It has been awfully quiet here over the last week or two in terms of solar flare activity. We just really haven't seen much in terms of, well, you know, earlier this year. It's been a pretty active year, but past week or so, past 10 days has been really quiet in terms of solar flare activity. There's our sunspot, 3474. It'd probably make for a great sunspot region to view in your solar telescope, solar camera. You got to make sure you have that solar lens on there, or else you damage your camera and your eyesight. So solar lens for sure, but that's a huge separation here in between these two magnetic cores. The only area that I think may play a part in some further uptick is this area down here on the southwestern edge, or at least on the left bottom side of 3474. Coronal holes, well, 66 is long gone. Not a whole lot facing us currently. As far as the Aurora forecast goes, that's pretty cool, man. Oh, Kevin's always got something up here that he pops up every Halloween. That's actually really cool. Pretty neat. Little pumpkin face out there on the sun. It'd be more awesome if these were indeed coronal holes, right? Say these eyes were coronal holes and the mouth the same, but it doesn't look like it. This is just pretty much a drawn-in image here, and it's cool nonetheless. I like it. Solar activity continues at low levels as we head into Halloween, although the chance for nightmarish solar flares have increased. Morbid M flares will be possible with AR 3474. Oh, I love it. Good stuff there, Kevin. Appreciate the updates here. I do love using the solarham.net site. It's pretty easy to migrate around. Information is right there where you need it. There's not a whole lot of technical advanced information that, you know, for the amateur, you know, and the casual user that wants to view the data, you know, it's really easy to understand, and I like that. It shows the complex sunspot regions here, beta gamma in 3473 and 3474, beta class 3472. And the Aurora ovals here, he gets his information directly from the Space Weather Prediction Center, which is NOAA. And here these guys show the 30-minute forecast here. Or it looks like 48-minute forecast lead time, which is probably not a lot going on right now as far as the auroras go. We were expecting some advanced solar wind stream to flow in around tonight and tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to come in. I think it missed us from that coronal hole. As we can see, green conditions across the board. Not a whole lot of uptick. Green on the chart means no greenery up in the sky. We need to see these in the yellow, orange, red, purple, whatever advanced colors here that the solarham.net site utilizes for the 3-day geomagnetic forecast. So we'll continue to watch the earthquake activity, Mount St. Helens, and the rest of the globe. Far as the Storm Prediction Center goes, there's not a whole lot of severe weather over the next couple days. Look at that. Very minimal conditions across the board. Far as the numerical model goes, well, bring up the latest model. Some cold air coming into the eastern portion of the country for tomorrow's Halloween trick-or-treating. Going to be awfully cold. Make sure you bundle up the kids there before you head out. Out here along the west coast, should be pretty nice in the day, a little cooler at night, but overall conditions aren't going to be too cold or too hot. Just kind of nice. And the long-term models here, well, they're iffy. Not a whole lot of certainty when it comes to any dominant weather patterns for now. But we are getting, of course, into that time of year where things start getting mixed up here. We are watching the El Nino event. El Nino event still continuing and is expected to be strong as we head into the winter months here of our rainy season. El Nino winter impacts. Now these guys are showing what looks like some minimal adjustments here to your typical weather pattern. Now for El Nino winter, right, if you look up here across a good portion of the desert southwest into portions of the south, is going to be wet and cool, a little bit wetter than normal across this area. But that also includes California, right? Most part in terms of El Nino for the Pacific Northwest are drier and warmer, and that's where this blob of orange is. That should be a little bit further down south, stretching into Oregon. But for us here in California, Southern California, we are mainly wet. That Pacific jet aims right in this area here to California. So this is just one media that these folks have drawn out. But most models show California, Southern California, above average rainfall in an El Nino pattern. And the seasonal outlook shows that California is in that above average area for precipitation this winter, which is good news. We're out of the drought. I'd like to stay out of the drought out here in California. So bring on the rain this winter. I'm not even joking. I love it. I love it when everything's green and full in terms of the reservoirs and whatnot. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here again. Have a good night. Halloween is tomorrow. Hope everyone stays safe out there. And, of course, we'll be doing some updates out here throughout the day tomorrow. We will catch you guys back out here a little bit later tomorrow morning. A little bit of activity stirring up here, it looks like, on the Lake Yellowstone seismograph station. Not a whole lot, but just some very small spike earthquake activity. Also in Petrolia here in Northern California. Little spike of an earthquake. These are probably 0.1 or smaller. Probably about 0.1, 0.2. But for the most part, all the seismograph stations there look calm for now. But these can change in a blink of an eye. So we'll catch you guys back out here tomorrow morning. Enjoy your Monday night. Take care, folks.